and gentlemen, it's time for the Schmoedown Rundown. Introducing first, Frankie Stats Janisch. And their co-host, the man of controversy, Mr. Brian the Duke David. And finally, your host, Aaron Turner. Let's get ready to Schmoedown.
What's going on, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fans? It is episode number 42 of the Schmoedown Rundown, the official after show for the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. My name is Aaron. I am your host, as always. Joining me today, Statman Frank Janisch. How are you today? How's it going? All right. Also joining me, Brian Davids. What's going on, man?
Aaron, your Stardust reactions continue to be criminally overlooked. Frank, your stats continue to impress Jeremy Johns and Mark Fernandez. However, neither of you can say that you inspired the breaking news tab.
I don't even know what that means. Frank, I got to clear something up top. I was reading the Schmoedown blog the other day. Now, this guy, Tom, writes a blog that basically recaps the action of the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. He also has some opinion pieces, and it's really good. I actually binged a lot of articles this week, and one of them caught my eye. I need you to clear something up, you son of a gun. Have you been kayfabing us this entire time? Are you Josh McCouga's mystery partner?
Yes.
I knew it.
You're not even gonna try to deny it?
No.
Did you tell Tom from the Schmoedown blog that you were his partner? How did he get this information?
It's a good question. I'm gonna have to find the source of these leaks. You know, I don't know. I don't like how this news got out there. It wasn't supposed to happen, but it did, and there it is.
Probably starts with a Ra, ends with an Ascii, I imagine, is how he got that news.
I'd imagine you'd be correct.
Let me just say a couple things. I've talked to Tom a little bit. Our friend Sarah Hussein, superfan, she actually contributes to this blog now. Yes. So she's been commenting these super long comments for a while now. And I'm glad that she's finally getting an outlet to put her thoughts on. But Tom, he's the guy who reached out to me when Andraco did his famous collision rant. He's the guy who tweeted, Andraco is pulling a Brian David. So anyone who says things like that, tweets things like that, is okay in my book.
Well, I'm also glad that Sarah is getting an outlet because she has very good opinions and very smart, very well said, and very well researched. So, if she's a part of this, that's a good get for him. And I really like what they're doing there. So if you get a chance, check out the Schmoedown blog. Let's get ready to Schmoedown.com, I believe, and at Schmoedown blog on Twitter. So definitely give them a look if you can.
Actually, .blog.
.blog. I apologize. Let's get ready to Schmoedown.blog. I want to make sure I got that right. We got some breaking news, Brian, and I believe you want to lead us into this breaking news?
We've got a lot of stuff here. First off, the Malton Falcons, Leonard and his daughter, are booked to play Cinema Sins. This is a classic example of old school Hollywood versus not in Hollywood. This is basically a grudge match between everything that's right about Hollywood and everything that's wrong about Hollywood in 2017. You see what I did there, folks? But yeah, this is the debut of Leonard Maltin and his daughter's team. I'm blanking on her name for some reason. Forgive me, folks.
It's Jesse
Maltin. Frank, any reaction to this rather interesting matchup? This is perhaps one of the most random matchups we've ever had.
Yeah, so this matchup with the Malton Falcons, I love the name, and Cinema Sins should be really, really interesting. When I heard the Maltons were getting involved, that was really exciting, and I think everybody else in the community was just as excited. And I know a lot of people have wanted to see Cinema Sins for a while as well. So we got two great teams, I think, here, and it should be a hell of a show.
I think it's very cool. I'm interested to see if they will integrate Cinema Sins in particular into the Schmoedown with their sort of gimmick that they do. Like if if the Maltons get a question wrong, will they get a sin added to their score or something like that? I think that would be kind of cool to integrate what they do. And, anytime you get star power like Leonard freaking Malton in the Schmoedown, you got to do it. You send him a royalty. So
I'm curious if Cinema Sins will do everything that's wrong with the Schmoedown, everything that's wrong about the Schmoedown, whatever they call their videos. So
isn't that what we do here?
I think that's the funniest thing Frank's ever said on the show. My God.
More or less, yeah. More or less.
I want to frame that comment. It was so good. But folks, we have some other late breaking news. Patriots versus MODOK, formerly known as Rotten Tomatoes, the artist formerly known as Rotten Tomatoes. You might see on the current schedule that they were slated to play on August 15th. Well, that's now moved to August 11th, next Friday. That's right. A title match is coming next week. What's the reasoning? Well, we might have not one celebrity match, but two celebrity matches, perhaps even 3 celebrity matches. So hold on tight, folks, like Finn Whitehead in Dunkirk, because the Schmoedown is taking off.
Yeah, a little surprising that they moved up the match, but I should say the title match, but given the news that there's a possibility of these celebrity matches, it makes sense. But hey, the sooner a title match, I'm fully welcoming to it. So I can't wait to see this match, Patriots and MODOK. I think it's going to be one for the history books. That's for sure.
I love seeing the Patriots retain their belt a few days earlier. So I'm sure you're okay with this too, Aaron.
More Lions Den, more Dagnino, more Snyder, more JT, the better.
Well, I just want to follow up on some previous discussions. A guy named Jeremy Hastings, he's very active in the Schmoedown Facebook community, does a lot of reaction stuff. He put out this conspiracy photo in the Facebook group showing announcer Ken Knapsack reading an Elizabeth Banks Rita Repulsa question from critically acclaimed versus Only Stupid Answers. And then he showed an image from 1 week later where Ken was playing JTE and he was answering a similar Rita Repulsa Elizabeth Banks question correct in that very match. Now, the questions were not identical, but they were inverses of each other. So I truly don't care about questions being inverted. What I do care about is something that we've discussed on this show before, especially when it came to picking Christian Harloff at Collision. I've theorized that announcers improve their game by being around the game. They're exposed to all sorts of information, even elements of questions such as multiple choice options, as well as players' wrong answers can add to their trivia knowledge. So several people tried to argue this point with me, including the point that questions aren't reused. So to those of you who doubted such a theory, Knapsack proved my point to a T. Announcers benefit from their exposure to the game, and I believe that's played a key part of Christian Harloff's historic streak.
Ken lost, though.
Regardless, he got a question he probably, maybe, would not have had otherwise. So it just proves a prior point, and I like to follow up on our discussions just because we have so many of them, and I don't want them to just kind of drift off and never come back. Sometimes these things recur, and I don't know, it's worth updating. So,
Ken has a lot of ground to make up, so just sitting at the desk, I'm sure, has helped a lot. But yeah, he lost, and I think he's team matches, and the match against JT that he might have surprised some people out there, and so I think sitting at the desk absolutely does help in some instances, and it just gets you into that groove of answering questions the way they're worded, and you just get familiar with how everything rolls. So, but with Ken being up there quite often, I'm sure that had to help a little bit.
Guys, you're going to want to stick around till we get done with all these discussions because we have a special interview with Jenn Sterger. Now, let me predicate this with, when we do interviews with people, they don't know us from a hole in the wall. We interact with people on Twitter, but we never really get in depth until we get an interview. And I swear, I think by the end of this, Brian, I think we have a new best friend in Jenn Sterger, and I think you guys are going to figure that out too.
We've done a lot of interviews, and I think this might be our best interview yet. I'm not just saying that to hype it so people listen, but I truly believe it's one of our best. So cannot wait for you guys to hear it. Well, speaking of our friends and partners, it's time for the Ward Wing. Brian Ward continues to fill the Ward Wing with more and more masterpieces. This week, he did a Harry Potter themed poster for General Kalinowski and Crusher Cushing, while the Beast and Mance Man got a Kong Skull Island riff. While Brian's continue to make the Schmoedown a better place, make sure to follow this particular one at Brian E. Ward on Twitter and check his portfolio at brianeward.com.
All right, guys, we're going to do our first recap this week. It was an InnerGeekDom singles match, no team match. It was Mike, the Killer, I guess, still Kalinowski versus Rachel, the Crusher, Cushing. And it was a fantastic matchup. We had some very interesting kayfabe that took on a life of its own right before this match between Tom Dagnino and his persistent bid to try to oust Commissioner Harloff to be the new commissioner of the league, and the urban gladiator, Jay Washington. It turns out that Robert Meyer Burnett will be taking on Jay Washington in an InnerGeekDom match after Jay had challenged Tom, and he had RMB step in his stead. Good move there. Frank, what did you think of this?
Jay's going to get rolled by Robert Meyer Burnett. That's my thinking. And because I did not like what I saw out of him when he went up against Andraco. And now that wasn't an InnerGeekDom match, but he got some InnerGeekDom-esque questions, and he didn't answer them as well as I would like an InnerGeekDom player to answer them. And that's why I've never really been sold on Jay being a force in the InnerGeekDom, because you got Hector, you obviously have Rachel and Mike Kalinowski, and there's always Robert Meyer Burnett. He's going to be on everyone's heels. So I just don't know if Jay has all the geekiest knowledge to compete with these heavyweights at the top of the InnerGeekDom. I don't really buy it right now. And yeah, he's never been in an InnerGeekDom match, so it remains to be seen. But my gut feeling is it's not going to go well for Jay.
Frank, I'm a little surprised at you because Jay Washington is a Chicago person, just like yourself. You're going against your own townspeople. What the heck's up with that?
Look, I'm going to be real. How can I sugarcoat this? I really don't know any other way to do it. And that's my honest opinion. And it's been like that for a while, and I haven't said anything about it because he wasn't doing anything in the InnerGeekDom. Now that he's going to be playing, well, here are my thoughts.
Oh, wow. No loyalty in Chi-Town whatsoever. Brian, what did you think of this kayfabe here?
First off, is it kayfabe or is it J-fabe?
Oh, jeez.
And here comes this is the part in the show where we get all the thumbs down. Proceed.
Well, let me just say, I love how Jay will make a grammatical error and then blame it on the other person's vocabulary. It's brilliant how he'll just switch his mistakes and apply them to someone else. It's just so brilliant. I love it. And yeah, Tom replaced Jay's challenge and gave him R&B instead. I enjoy these little kayfables, but sometimes they can run a smidge long like this one did, but they're still really entertaining.
One bullet point I did want to make was that there was some controversy about Robert Meyer Burnett's t-shirt, which appeared to be a Four Horsemen t-shirt, but rest assured, the other horsemen were X'd out, and Robert was the only one still in there. A nice, subtle touch by Robert. I enjoyed that. And anytime I hear the words Hector Navarro, in my brain, I hear Robert Meyer Burnett echoing the word Navarro. I cannot get it out of my brain.
Navarro tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Spoiler alert.
There you go. All right. Well, let's talk about the pre-match promos. I want to get there first because Rachel Cushing, guys, she gets it. I've said this a million times. She uses the line, she's going to put the nail in Mike Kalinowski's coffin. I was not expecting that. I was taken aback by what she said there. You know, Rachel just, every time she talks now, she speaks with such conviction that I believe what she says. It's not a promo to me. I feel like she's actually talking right to the audience, and she believes what she says. Do you guys share this opinion?
It's remarkable how much she's evolved in such a short amount of time. We knew she had the knowledge, but now she's got the mic chops. She's got the mic skills. It's really phenomenal to watch. It truly is. We told her this in person, but every time she appears, you walk away stunned. And I don't know what match Makuga was watching, because he said before the match that Rachel couldn't crush a can with a shoe, when she crushed a tomato at Collider Collision, which he was missing in action at. So clearly Josh McCouga did not watch Collider Collision.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty odd as well. Like, dude, for real? And like, how come like no one like on the side was like, actually, dude, she crushed a tomato, so you might want to walk that back. So I thought that was kind of weird, but
well, Christian did throw it in, so Christian made sure
that's
to
right,
make
that's
up for
right,
that.
right.
But McCouga always misses the big events, and it shows.
But the one thing I did want to say is that, yeah, Rachel is starting to bring the heat on the mic, and I'm loving it. And then we'll get into her entrance, but this was just only a prelude as to what was to come start of the match.
Well, guys, I'll tell you why it wasn't brought up, because much like most people when it comes to Josh McCouga, they just try to ignore him anyway. So that's just how it happens. But anyway, as far as Mike Kalinowski goes with his promos,
it's very generic.
Oh, man, he is such a rosy cheek baby face. It kind of gets on my nerves. He's the John Cena of this league, and I resent him for it. I'm sure he's such a nice guy. But I have a problem with what we were promised with the league, and I feel like we're not getting it. And that's Johnny LaQuasto as the mouthpiece. I feel like the guy's a mute, more or less. Like, he's there, he's just nodding, he throws something in here from time to time.
He holds the towel.
I feel like Johnny should be the lead mouthpiece here, and I don't understand why it's not happening. Sure, Mike is good on the mic. That sounds weird, but Johnny, I feel like, should get more in there. The guy has deep wrestling knowledge. He's a wrestling commentator, for Pete's sake. I got to see more LaQuasto in there.
I agree with you on that point, but to be fair to Mike Kalinowski, he's a genuine face. He's not a fake face. He is a genuine face. When I see him, when he talks, I believe that he is a face. I don't have to be told that he's a face because I just believe it. He sold me on it. It's real. So I do appreciate that about him. But yeah, when you've got someone like LaQuasto, it just makes sense to utilize him versus just holding a towel.
What do you think, Frank?
Yeah, I think if he was more kind of in line how Jay supports Miss Movies and Stacey Howard, I think that could bring a little more excitement to these promos.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I mean, look at how Jay has kind of done that, and I would like to see Johnny do that. Maybe he'll do that down the road, and it's just not something they're ready to bust out yet because there is 4 of them. So it's kind of everybody kind of gets an equal share of the mic, which is fine for now. But as a fan, I do want to see a little bit more LaQuasto. Quick note about McCouga. I found it kind of funny that he took a shot at Mike Kalinowski for all the costumes that he has, yet this guy with his suits. So
yeah.
And we'll just leave that as to where it is.
Suits. I mean, come on.
Pot, meat, kettle.
Exactly. But the biggest thing about the pre-match before it even got started was the entrance of the Crusher. Now, guys, like InnerGeekDom fans, do not burn me at the stake for this. I have seen all 3 Lord of the Rings movies one time in theaters, so I was kind of confused as to what was going on. I didn't understand it, but it looked awesome. So it was fantastic. I don't know how long that was rehearsed. I probably should ask Rachel that, but man, it was amazing. So Frank, give me your thoughts on that entrance.
Yeah. When she came out and started reciting the lines, and then you got the special effects going, I was, and then you look at Rachel's face. She's really committed in that moment during all of that, and she completely sold it. And it was, at the time I was like, this might be the best entrance we've ever seen. Now, albeit a lot of it has to do with special effects, which is very nice, but because I don't want to take anything away from what 6 Degrees does, because those are tremendous entrances. But this one was something more different. And that's what I liked about it. It was a lot different. Yeah, it was effects heavy, but it totally fit the InnerGeekDom. It totally fit what Rachel was trying to do, and it worked for me.
Commitment, 100% commitment. What'd you think, Brian?
Well, clearly Aaron Wilhelm is getting his Christmas bonus early thanks to those visual effects, the lightning effects and whatnot. Like you, Aaron, I've only seen the Lord of the Rings films in theaters as well. And I don't know much about the character aside from remembering it as Kate Blanchett, I believe.
Yeah.
God, people are going to kill us for that. But
absolutely,
even without a deep knowledge of these films, it was still impressive. And There was a special effect, though, as a fan was being blown on Rachel to get her hair blowing in the wind like that. So
That's right.
it was a combination of VFX and SFX. Great package all around. And Rachel Cushing keeps on raising the bar for everybody. My God.
I refuse to believe that was a fan. I like to think it was magic.
Yes.
So
Good effects can be magic.
Quick note about Mike Kalinowski's entrance. He did kind of a fake out with Captain America, which kind of is a callback. May have been throwing some shade at Miss Movies there because she always says that he may look like Batman, but he acts like Captain America. So I'm thinking maybe that was a throwback at Miss Movies and their little rivalry they got going on. It was a nice touch. He fits the part.
Well, some quick news that dropped last week. Actually, you heard it first on this show. I said that August would be loaded with InnerGeekDom, and that's a fact because we're getting 3 InnerGeekDom matches this month. We've got Coy versus Inman. We've got Jay versus Robert Meyer Burnett. Of course, we have this match with Kalinowski and Cushing, and then all 3 winners will be playing in a triple threat to face Navarro at Spectacular. So much InnerGeekDom goodness. It's unbelievable.
Well, let's get to the scoring breakdown. Let's get to the actual match. We've been kind of beating around it enough. In round 1, it was Rachel getting 11 points, just missing out on a perfect round. Mike getting 8 points. Got a little controversy here. Question 2. Why was Deadpool's suit red? Now I'm going to go to a clip here of what Mike's response was that was eventually challenged. So listen to this.
Why is Deadpool's suit red? Besides 2, 1, pens down, Rachel.
To hide the blood.
That's correct, Mike.
Because of the blood?
It was
on the blood.
It was on the blood. I don't think we can take it was on the blood. It was. Do you want to challenge that? Because it was on the blood.
I was saying when I wrote it was bled on. I'll challenge that because it was bled on.
It was bled on. It was bled on. Not, it was on the blood. It was bled on. It says that. It does say it was bled on.
It was bled on.
He wrote it was bled on. That was his answer. And then it was challenged and it was overturned. Now I want you to listen to this clip from the actual movie and explanation of why he wears the red suit. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about it.
Wait! You may be wondering why the red suit. Well, that's so bad guys can't see me bleed. This guy's got the right idea. He wore the brown pants.
Okay, so you can see there that the reason that Deadpool wears his suit is so bad guys cannot see him bleed. Guys, you know, I'm not a referee. I'm not a judge. I'm just merely an amateur podcaster here. That doesn't sound remotely close to one another. Frank, am I wrong?
You are not. I was completely confused as to how they let his answer stand after the challenge.
No, let's be clear. It was overturned, giving him the point. It was shot down initially. Challenge happened. They overturned it, giving him the point.
Right. So it was the initial decision was overturned and then to give him the point. Yeah, it just... It's interesting that Rachel didn't decide to challenge that as well, but I guess it would have been moot since they already ruled on it. But now that I'm talking about it out loud, so yeah, it didn't sit well with me.
What do you think, Brian? Here we got some controversy.
I hate to sound like a broken record, but I feel even worse for IGN, may they rest in peace, when I see more leeway calls like this. However, it would have been a damn shame had IGN gone on to beat Rotten Tomatoes at Collision, only to break up before they could face the champs next week. So there's no way in hell a top denner gets this call overturned for them. So as I've said before, folks, genuine faces in this league, they kind of get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to certain challenges.
I mean, it's not even, in my opinion, not even close. So I don't know, but, you know, I guess in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter, but that's kind of a spoiler, but let's move on. I also wanted to throw in something real quick. There was a discussion during the Doctor Strange question of what would you call a cloak or a cape if you had one. This was banter between Christian and Makuga, and Josh did not give a good answer, in my respect. I feel like there was a layup answer that they both missed. If you have a cape and you need to give it a name, Wouldn't you just call it Cape Beckinsale?
Oh, jeez.
Or Cape Fabe.
All right.
Hold on.
Cut that out.
Speaking of Josh McCouga, I have more evidence that he did not watch Collider Collision. When question 4 was read, who won the World Series in Back to the Future 2, McCouga clearly did not recognize why the crowd reacted to it like they did. So if he watched Collision, which he wasn't at, he would know all of the Back to the Future controversies. So Josh McCouga, I know you're not at these events, but you got to watch him, man.
Yeah, that was interesting because he started to explain, oh, the crowd didn't like that question. But it's like, well, actually, so yeah, that did throw me for a little bit of a loop there. Why he came up with that explanation.
This is our fantasy man, guys, but he's got to watch these matches. So I haven't picked on Josh in a while, so I feel like I owe him some back payments, so to speak.
It's due for a burial for sure. And in this first round, guys, I think we got what may be the quote of the year so far. When the James Bond category was brought up, like, oh, hey, we're springing James Bond on you. And Rachel Cushing with perhaps the quote of the year. Now, kids, if you're, sensitive to curse words, you may want to cover your ears right now. She said, I could turn heel over this bullshit. And that killed me. How fantastic was this?
It was truth. It was truth. That's why it was so great, because she was speaking her mind. And I think, as you'll see in the Facebook community, the Schmoedown Facebook group, a lot of people were going back and forth over this. And, hey, Rachel was just expressing her displeasure, and I could not agree more.
Wait. People were upset that James Bond was a category.
I know, it's hard to believe.
You're ribbing me. You're ribbing.
No, yeah, they need to get rid of that, like, tomorrow, yesterday, the day before that, yeah.
Brian, I'm going to get to you in a second. I got to go back to Frank here, because, Frank, you were very mad that James Bond was in this. Like behind-the-scenes action in a group chat that we're a part of, Frank was pissed.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. If you put all these movies or these series in a list, and he asked me which one doesn't belong, which one's going to stick out to you? Oh, James Bond. Like, just going off of that. And then once I read Rachel's explanation that she posted in the group, I was like, yes, thank you. So if you haven't read that explanation from Rachel and why she believes James Bond doesn't belong in the InnerGeekDom, I implore you to go search that in the Facebook group and then try to come up with a rebuttal. It's not going to go well even if you try.
Frank, what is the main takeaway from Rachel's big post, just for those of us who can't read?
She goes back into how certain elements in James Bond don't really... It's more based in reality than perhaps like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, where it's more fantastical. It's not in our reality. That's kind of the gist of it, basically.
And you had another point to make?
Yeah, I'm still, as much as I love these movies, Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, I'm not really sure how I feel about those being in the InnerGeekDom. I like them, but Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, I love those movies, but I'm not sure that there was ever this huge, like, geek fandom around Back to the Future. I mean, it was just about kind of like 80s nostalgia or 50s nostalgia kind of stuff like that. I just don't know how that sits with me. The Hobbit, obviously, that's Middle Earth stuff, so I can see that one. But the other two, I don't know. I just don't know.
A couple things. I believe Back to the Future was added, based on all the hoopla over some people not knowing Back to the Future, but now it forces those people to have to actually watch and study Back to the Future. So this is in response to people not knowing things. And so the league is basically forcing them to know things, and I like it in that sense. But when it comes to Rachel's quote of the year, I could turn heel over this bullshit. For some reason, I kept thinking of the younger audience of the Schmoedown. Some of these 16-year-old kids, they're probably waiting at the breakfast table, their mom's making them Eggos or something, and the Eggos are taking too long to cook. And then one of them says, I could turn heel over this bullshit, Mom. I don't know why I thought of that at the time, but I can see DeGraff or someone like that going with something like that.
You just wrote a skit for Awesome-tacular without even trying, so that's
Thank
pretty
you.
good. I also just, in my opinion, the whole thing, I won't stay on a fence at all. I don't think that James Bond, Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, none of them belong. Get them all out of InnerGeekDom. That's my stance on it. I also feel like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings should all be combined into one.
Sure.
Because you have all the Star Wars movies, prequels, and Rogue One. That's all one category. So you might as well just make The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings the same category as well. I mean, because there are different characters and different stories. I feel like I'm digressing here, but that's just how I feel about it. I feel like video game movies need to be in there as well. And I know that there were categories that were thrown out there for InnerGeekDom that were not added. I'm not going to get into that as to why or who told me that, because it's important. But there is room for more categories. I just don't think these were the ones.
Yeah, I don't think these were the ones. And to like throw them all of a sudden without any warning to the competitors was very
Christian-like?
Yes, very Christian-like. No, yeah. I honestly, yeah, you're right. I'm not surprised that they did it, but it was like, wow. Like all of a sudden. Okay.
Since you guys just gave all of your James Bond thoughts, I'm going to give mine that I was going to say for the end. So I don't have much to add to this discussion that hasn't already been addressed by 25,000 other YouTube and Facebook comments. So I just want to say what others have said. You can be geeky about anything. I'm geeky about Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Breaking Bad had a mild Comic-Con presence towards the end of its series run, but James Bond, which has indeed had a Comic-Con presence over the years, is so stylish and cool that you wouldn't think of it as a sweaty category like you would most InnerGeekDom categories. But when you think about Q and all of his gadgets and the ridiculousness of some of its villains and stunts, Dr. Christmas Jones, there's definitely some geekiness to it. So I think there's valid arguments on both sides, but if people were better at it, it wouldn't get this amount of backlash. Also, I like that it makes InnerGeekDom more difficult. Bond is such a sprawling category with 6 different James Bond actors across 24 films, plus the idea of a category that neutralizes both Nightmare Navarro or Crusher Cushing to varying degrees. That intrigues me since it's bound to create more drama. However, like Frank just said, I don't like players being surprised on the day of their matches because they work so damn hard to be ready for these matches. I also don't want surprise categories to become a trend just so the fans will freak out and engage more than usual. It's basically category trolling, so I hope that does not become a trend.
No, yeah, because I honestly don't know what purpose that serves for the audience sake.
Got it pocket.
We are all fired. I think Christian pretty much summed it up when he said, "I don't care." So they're
I know
kinda, yeah. So anyway,
but that's why I respect Christian, because he doesn't care. He's gonna do what he thinks is best, and that's awesome. Fine.
You do you, Commissioner. You do you. Let's jump to round 2, where Rachel got Marvel movies on the wheel. She went 4 or 5 for 6 points. Mike Kalinowski spins the dreaded scores and soundtracks for some. 3 of 5 for 5 points. Mike did get a 1-point steal. John Travolta was Howard Saint in The Punisher. Rachel also a 1-point steal for I Want You Back from Guardians of the Galaxy. So at the end of round 2, it was looking really good for the Crusher here. She was leading 18-13. Frank, any thoughts on round 2 here?
I think Mike kind of, he did Weather the Storm through scores and soundtracks. I think if he had a different category, we might have seen a closer score at the end of rounds 1 and 2. But nonetheless, I think this match, the way it was going, we saw just how dominant Rachel is through the first 2 rounds.
What do you think, Brian? Did you think that Mike still had a chance, or was the Crusher just inevitable here, going to win this?
Look, this shows a classic example of what the wheel can do for you. Rachel got a favorable category in Marvel movies, while Mike got scores and soundtracks. And even though he got scores and soundtracks, he had some questions that he needs to answer, such as, what does Baby Groot dance to? Again, if you kind of visualize the scene, much like that Jeremy Johns AC/DC question at a Collision, the lyrics can kind of come to you, but didn't happen in this case. Star Trek Beyond. Sabotage was in the trailer. It got a ton of attention for the use of that song and how kind of blatant and ridiculous it was. So that's another question that he needs to answer. So Mike had opportunities that he simply missed, and not a great round for either player though. 6-point turn for Rachel, 5-point turn for Mike, 18-13 going into round 3. Mike had a chance though.
Yeah, he came right up firing in round 3. He got the question, Spock was rescued from a volcano, plus 2 points for him. Then he may have got the pull of the match here, which really saved him. His 3-pointer, Feora, was General Zod's right-hand lady in Man of Steel. Great pull there.
Amazing.
For Mike Kalinowski. So we had to go back to Rachel, who got her 2-pointer, who played Whistler's daughter in Blade 3, and it is Jessica Biel in that regrettable film. Rachel has a lead 20-18, so it's down to Mike. He's got to get his 5-pointer here to stay in the game. What song plays in the opening credits of Deadpool? Deadpool comes back to bite him after some favorable turn earlier in the match. Angel of the Morning is the answer, and Mike does not get it. Rachel pulls off the victory, 20-18. Brian, how impressed were you with the Crusher this time?
I'm beyond impressed, but besides Deadpool, scores and soundtracks came back to haunt Mike Kalinowski. So the two big aspects that haunted him this match, Deadpool and scores and soundtracks, ultimately cost him the match, even though he got a favorable challenge in his favor with Deadpool earlier. So the story is all about the Crusher, though. Remarkable player, remarkable entrance, remarkable smack talk. This is a match that we're going to look back to and say, remember this because of all the attributes and elements we've mentioned. So Clark Wolf had the foresight to get Rachel the Crusher Cushing in this league because she is currently my favorite player.
Well, Frank, we've seen so far with Rachel that she likes to give maximum effort. This is another great showing for her. What did you think of this match?
Oh, it was just exactly what I was hoping she would do. She came into this match averaging 81%, and she scored 85% throughout this match. So she played above her lifetime average. And when she gets that shot,
InnerGeekDom, you mean?
Yeah, and I'm talking purely InnerGeekDom here. But when she gets that shot in the triple threat, it's going to be very interesting to see who's alongside her and how that format. Let's see if it rattles her, depending who her opponents are. I mean, she was in the 5-way. I have to assume that speed round is the only thing I'm worried about. If she can kind of rectify those issues. I know going up against Jeremy Johns, who's like the master at the speed round.
Fast twitch.
Geez, man, he's ridiculous. Even, we saw him against Navarro, what he did. Anyways.
Navarro!
Yes. That's a new con.
It really is.
Yeah, I'm just really excited to see Rachel take this league maybe single-handedly to another level. And I do have some thoughts on the formatting of these InnerGeekDom matches. Something that I noticed, these round ones are very erratic in terms of how many questions are in the first round. And I went back and I looked at all the first rounds the InnerGeekDom has had. And I understand it's still a very young league and they're trying to figure out stuff and formats and whatnot. But in the first Fatal 5-way, it was 10 questions. The follow-up match with Robert Meyer Burnett and Hector Navarro was 8 questions. In the second Fatal 5-way, it was 8 questions, and they only asked 6 due to mathematical elimination. The one after that, the Robert Meyer Burnett and Jeremy Johns, was 14 questions, and that's just a regular, 1v1. And the third Fatal 5-way had 10. At Collision had 12, and now this one had 12. So a few different variations in terms of questions in the first round. Very, very interesting.
I need to cut that clip out where Christian said, I don't care, because I feel like that would be another spot where you would present that to him and he just simply wouldn't care. So,
yeah.
So
I got some more stuff here regarding Rachel and question streaks, answering correctly. Now, Rachel in this match, as we know in this match, in the first round, Rachel got 10 correct in a row. So it got me thinking, what other question streaks has happened in the InnerGeekDom, especially with Navarro and Robert Meyer Burnett. So I went back and I looked, and the longest streak is actually Hector Navarro at 11. He did that in the first Fatal 5-way. And then the other streaks, Jeremy Johns had a 10-question streak against Navarro, and Cushing is now tied with Johns for number 10. If you combined her last fatal five-way with this match, that is 19 straight questions she has answered correctly, which is pretty astounding.
So in other words, Rachel's really good.
Basically everything we already knew. Yeah, I just wanted to put a little more, just dot the I's and cross the T's on that one.
Love it. Let's talk about, we're going to jump to the post-match now. Guess what, guys? Guess who's back from suspension? Friend of the show, good buddy of ours, Mr. Tom Dagnino, is back. And he had some choice words for Rachel. He had some choice words for InnerGeekDom. He and Emma had a nice back and forth. And then, of course, we saw the reemergence of Robert Meyer Burnett. So, Brian, what do you think about this post-match here?
Well, I thought the closet confrontation would be a bit of a bigger deal. It was just kind of quickly addressed, and they moved on to bigger fish, I guess. But really, I don't want to bury the lead. Robert Meyer Burnett, once he came out, this thing really got cooking. Tom's amazing, of course, but Robert had quotables for days. He called out Navarro again, the Crusher, and then one of the most famous quotes we'll ever hear, "Tomorrow Navarro," which I'm told by the commissioner was his brainchild. So there's a lot of debate about this, but regardless, "Tomorrow Navarro," my God, what a quote. Emma had a good quote of her own. "God, I'm so tired of old white men." I've got a weird observation to make about Emma, but I don't want to go too far quite yet. So, Aaron, what did you think of Robert Meyer Burnett's antics?
I love this guy. Every time this guy shows up, I don't even need Robert Meyer Burnett to play, really. Like, I just need him to show up and just annoy people. That's all I need him to do. The fact that he plays and is a good InnerGeekDom player, that's just icing on the cake. But I just like to see him get in people's faces. It's an absolute crack up. What about you?
In terms of performance, is his performance in and of itself, just the performance, is he the best heel performer when you just look at this particular aspect? I feel like he taps into something that really no one else has.
He's a supervillain. He is the epitome of a comic book supervillain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To the T.
he's absolutely 100% the best that's doing it right now, in my opinion. As a
Even-
pure heel, yeah.
Even adds the cackling, the maniacal villain cackling.
And I gotta say, every time he talks, I kind of cringe because I never know what's going to come out of his mouth. Because like he always ends up saying something I find kind of questionable. Like, did you hear how you worded things together? Just so I I love whenever he talks, but at the same time, there's just a hint of me that's kind of cringing. Like, I don't know what he's going to say next. Some stuff I don't ever care to repeat, but
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, just pretend like it didn't happen. I
Yeah.
guess.
Guys, I just realized something that I've noticed for a while, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it until this week. And that's that Emma kind of talks like Stewie from Family Guy in terms of her pattern of questioning and inflection. There's a scene in Family Guy's early seasons, maybe season 4, where Stewie questions Brian about a novel he's writing. And it so reminds me of Emma. You guys know what I'm talking about? Stewie says, how you coming on the novel you're working on, huh? Got a big stack of papers there, and your big novel you've been working on?
Some friends become enemies, some enemies become friends. Everybody's a little stronger for the experience.
Exactly. A little obstacle for him to overcome. I feel like she does the same thing, though, where it's a little InnerGeekDom, little triple threat, little perfect singles record.
Maybe that's why I like it so much, because it reminds me of that.
It reminds me of
I
that.
didn't catch that, but now I'm going to go look that up
Yeah, it's-
and die laughing.
I
Now that
I swear it's there. There's this certain pattern to it.
No, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
Somewhere in the world, Chris Clark will make a video about that, and we will love it.
Yes.
We'll love him for it. All right, so we go to the Mike Kalinowski interview, and it's very plain, like, Mike did very well, and Mike's he's like, I'm not talking bad about anybody, but if you don't know James Bond, that's pretty bad. That's kind of mean. Just want to throw that out there. But
He could kind of correct himself. Did you notice? He's like, I'm not trying to come across as a bad guy, but
it was very half measured. It was like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but if you don't know James Bond, you're an idiot. Kind of like, whoa, all right, well. But anyway, there was a musical interruption to the league here, and it was Brienne and Stacy singing Angel of the Morning. Wow. What did you think of this, Frank?
Oh, I thought it was great. I was very, very funny. Despite the fact that even though Brienne had lost previously to Kalinowski, she can still come in there and poke fun and get a little jab here and there. And I thought that was really fun.
Yeah, I like the little rivalry that they have going on here. They do a lot of back and forth on Twitter that's really funny. So check that out there. It's a lot of fun. But any closing thoughts on this match before we wrap up?
No, not really. I mean, I'm just looking forward to the next one. And because InnerGeekDom is quickly becoming... If it's not already, it's probably the most popular match that the Schmoedown has going.
Oh, you think so?
I do. I really do.
All right. Well, let me ask this. This is kind of something that we didn't really bring up, but does Coy have a bone to pick? Because Coy has to be in this triple threat to get a title shot, but Coy won a fatal 5-way, so what's up with that?
He's got to play Inman, remember? So...
He's still, but he has to play Inman to get into the triple threat, though.
Correct, and the winner of the triple threat then plays Navarro at Spectacular.
Well, it's because Coy answered like 45% correct in the fatal 5-way. So
it's just a balancing act, more or less.
Like Puddin blew it for Mike in that match. So I think Coy has to go through another step to get to a potential title shot, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because remember, Jeremy, he won his fatal 5-way. He still had to go against Robert Meyer Burnett to get his title shot. So this is just a little more of a dramatic way, I guess.
Okay, so basically, I'm wrong. So
yes,
right,
yeah, that's
totally
what we're
fine.
getting. Yeah,
No problem. Totally fine. Happens a lot. All right, let's jump into the second singles match. It was our good friend William the Beast Bibbiani versus Scott Mantz, an epic battle of movie reviewing legends. Let's talk about some promo and pre-match work here. We had Scott Mantz doing his best movie release dates falsetto voice and really getting into it. I like the musical Mance Man. I'm a big fan of that. We saw Ricky come back and he was in the corner of the Beast. I like that a lot. And Bibbs, once the show got started a little bit, took some shots at La La Land, as one of us on the panel here predicted. Mm-hmm. So, Brian, what did you think of all this?
Well, first off, everybody knows that I had doubts about Ricky joining the Beast and forming a stable. Obviously, we didn't know at the time that it would become the Growling Commandos with Whitney and whatnot, but this is the first time that we've really seen Ricky hype the Beast before a match, and it worked beautifully to me. It absolutely worked beautifully. Because Ricky's no longer a player, he just has to focus on the Beast, and that is what the Beast needs. Beast needs a dedicated handler, and this is a perfect relationship right now. So, man, the Growling Commandos, if they get one more big piece, game over. But, yeah, like you said, though, the Beast, in our interview, I suggested to him, based on another show and Mark and Draco getting in the head of Scott Mantz by saying how overrated and derivative La La Land was, that really rattled Mantz. So, Beast was kind of taking a lesson or a page out of Android's book, and he came out firing. He even threw in some Star Trek cracks, even though nobody understood those. But Scott clearly understood them, and it may have had an effect. It may not have had an effect, but I love what Beast is doing. One of my favorite players, top 3, if not.
What do you think, Frank?
Oh, the Beast continues to delight. It's just, I love how he's approaching this, and his relationship with Ricky, I think, is really coming along. I don't know how familiar they were before all this happened, but I suspect as time goes on and they get a feel for how they want to take things, it's only going to get better and better from here on out. And I completely look forward to seeing what the Growling Commandos do and Whitney Steibold getting more involved when he can. And, going back to this La La Land jab stuff, I got to say, I know we're kind of jumping the gun here, but fast forwarding to the end of the match when Scott is talking about all this, the crowd and whatnot, you could tell he was visibly perturbed, is what I'll say.
It's a little salty.
Speaking of quotables that we'll be quoting for the end of time, 5 words. Give me that throat, boy.
Oh my God.
Yeah, professionalism at its finest from Baby Carrots.
I cannot believe they left that in, and that Alice has to live with that on the internet forever. That's amazing.
Golden Throat is bad enough.
Well, that's something you can live with, but geez.
The first time I heard Golden Throat, I'm like, what in the hell? Like, that bothered me from the very moment I heard it. This is just a whole step for this is gilding the lily at this point. This is way too far. I don't know what to say.
And
but
usually Christian doesn't say anything when Alice says one of these weird things, but this time he just was like, hold on. That is god awful. Like,
I can't take that
with
compliment.
you?
I will not take that compliment, Alice. Take it back.
Like, that's the line apparently for Harloff. So which is
but
pretty
guys,
far.
But guys, let's not bury the lead. Something disappeared for a few weeks, and it's finally back. And that's where in the world is Booker T.
Tell me where in the world is
Booker T! And where was Booker T this week?
Well, hang on a second, Aaron. I've got something to address with you on the air because you've been telling people on Twitter that you invented the Where in the World is Booker T segment. What's up with that?
I invented the music. I did not invent the segment itself. I never said that.
Clearly, when I came up with the Where in the World is Booker T segment, I was basing the name on the song from Carmen Sandiego's show. So for you to take credit for the music, you're kind of partially taking credit for the segment. So we're going to have to go to the judges on this one. They'll get back to us in a few weeks, but
they actually already overturned it and I won. So it's
I'm not sure about that. See, I'm
my show, it's my IP, so I win.
I'm a face. So faces get the calls, you know? So look,
I'm a face in what world?
You're the bigger heel this week. I got news for you, buddy. You've been the biggest heel of the two of us lately. But
it's true. Good point.
To answer the question, where in the world is Booker T? He's in a nondescript office. That is his most genius stroke yet. I love it. More importantly, this Mance kid is tough. However, he still takes the beast.
He's a smart guy. He's a smart guy for doing that. I thought he had a lot of good insight in this one, talking about movie release dates and stuff like that. He's like, movie release dates might be his thing, but it might be his undoing. There's some good stuff from Book in this one. I like this one.
This Mance kid, that's up there. That's up there with Jeremy Jans. That's up there, man.
Or Schneider.
Schmoedown. All right, let's get into round one, where we're going to talk here a little bit about the Beast, because guess what? He went 8 for 8. Let's roll the clip.
Damn right. If he gets this right, he will have a perfect round and has a chance for a bonus. This is not the only time he has ever done this.
That's right. The bonus question, what was Dorothy's first name?
All right, here we go. Last one, category of Oscars. For what film did actress Audrey Hepburn win her one and only Academy Award for acting? Bibbs?
Roman Holiday.
That is correct.
Oh, boy.
Bibbiani has scored a perfect round here. He did it again. This is the third time he has done perfect round.
No, we're not doing this.
Bibbs has done this multiple times. Other people have done this as well. Give me kind of the stat breakdown on perfect rounds.
So in perfect rounds, if you combined the singles and the teams, and when I say teams, I'm only counting this year's 8-question format because each competitor answers solely by themselves. So with that in mind, a perfect first round has happened 15 times by an individual.
Wow, okay. I didn't think it was that many.
It's happened 10 times in singles and, 5 times in teams. Now, right off the bat, let me get through the teams. It's Ascii, Robert from Late to the Party, and Whitney Seibel have done it, and they've each answered the bonus question as well. And then Jeff Snyder has done it, and Jim Vejvoda has done it. That's teams. That's 5. Now, Riley McCouga Ellis, they each had a perfect first round in the 2014 tournament. When Bibbiani first did it, it was a 6-question first round, so that's why I'm including 2014. Sure, the difficulty may be different, but nonetheless, it's a 6-round question. That's when Bibbiani first did it. Merle has done it twice. He did it once in 2016 last year, and he just did it again against Levine. And then Tim Franco did it in his debut, and Mark and Draco did it infamously against Bibbiani in their first meetup, which was, again, a 6-question round. Now, Bibbiani has done it twice this year, more than anybody. So he now has done it 3 times. So now Bibbiani has done this 3 times, once in 2016 and now twice in 2017, more than anybody. Merle has done it twice, so Bibbiani holds that lone record now. 3 perfect first rounds. Merle just 2.
All the records for the Beast.
It broke my heart, though. As the internet's first Denis Villeneuve fan, it broke my heart when William Bibbiani missed the names of the heptapods in Arrival, the best movie of 2016. Of course, they were named Abbott and Costello. He said Laurel and Hardy. That just broke my heart. I'm sure it broke his as well. But regardless, what an accomplishment. 3 perfect rounds, and he's been in the league for like 5 months. Unbelievable.
It's good stuff. I knew you would be upset about that Arrival question.
I was.
But I did want to message you about it because I didn't know if you'd seen the match yet. Round 2 actually hurt my feelings. But give me your overall thoughts on round 1 here.
Round 1 went about as I expected. I expected the Beast to get an early lead. 8-5 sounded about right. And this really set the tone. I didn't think Mance really had a chance going into this match. And aside from the Arrival issue, Beast was as we expected. The round went as I expected. I expected a score of, say, 8-5. Mance is just good enough to hang around, but I expected Beast just to have a little bit of distance going into round 2. And that basically is enough room for players like Bibbiani, players like Merle, elite players of that caliber. You give them 3 points in round 1, that's all they need to take it the rest of the way to win.
What do you think, Frank?
Yeah, I mean, every time Bibbiani has a first round, I fully expect him to answer 7 to 8 questions correctly for 7 to 8 points. And Mance did about what I thought he should do, taking away what he did against Rudnick that last match, which was atrocious. This is what Mance usually is, about 4 or 5 points. That's what he's good for in the first round. And when you come out of that first round with a 3-4 point lead, in this case 3 for Bibbiani, that's a big lead in the Schmoedown. So, and as we saw going forward, that pretty much helped Bibbiani through the rest of this match.
By the way, how did Scott Mantz not know James Spader's film Stargate? That's just shocking for a big Star Trek fan. A fan of sci-fi, I mean.
He was close, right?
He didn't write an answer, I thought. I don't think he wrote an answer.
I forgot what he wrote, but it was a comedy answer. But anyway, let's jump to round 2, where we had Bibbiani getting coming of age, going 3 of 4 for 6 points. Don't worry, I'll have a point to make about Bibbiani here in a second. Scott Mantz gets Quentin Tarantino nearly gets movie release dates. So close. 3 of 4 for 6 points. Scott Mantz did get a 1-point steal, which broke my heart that the Beast did not get it. What was Katie's last name in Mean Girls? One of the greatest top 10 films ever made. It's fantastic. Katie Heron. Come on. They say it like 50 times in that movie. Katie Heron. Oh my God, that one hurt my feelings. All right, so round 2, we had Bibbs with a 14-12 lead. Frank, what did you think here?
You know, he got 6 points during his turn, which isn't bad. I would like for Bibbiani to be in that 7 to near perfect score range. I really do, because he's that good. The second round can always kind of turn out to be the great equalizer here, depending on the spin and if you go to multiple choice and what have you. And because as we've seen here, Bibbiani got 6 points. Mance was able to make up a tiny sliver of ground here by earning 7 points with the 1-point steal. So this is kind of what plagued him in his losses, is the second round. I was glad he got 6 points for sure. But I would like to see him capitalize on some steals.
Knock it off. He had 14 out of 16 available points at this point. What more can the guy do? Come on.
Well, it's not like Mance was having a bad match as well. I mean, 5 points is decent for league standards, and 7 points is above average. So that's where I'm coming from.
I'm still surprised there was yet another Brian David's wheel reference. Apparently that's a thing. They just kind of cut around it in most cases. But I'm also surprised that Joe Gage in Hateful Eight was missed by both players. That was quite shocking. Donnie Donowitz and Inglourious Bastards, that's a harder pull for most people, yet Mance got that. Quentin Tarantino, how many Oscars? 2, of course. Jack Rabbit Slim's Pulp Fiction, one of Aaron Turner's favorite films. 14-12. Mance made this a match. Very impressive round, thanks to Quentin Tarantino. Plus, Scott got that 1-point steal. So 6-point round for Scott, plus the 1-point steal for 7. So, Aaron Turner, give me your thoughts on the Mance Man's late surge.
I've never seen Pulp Fiction. Come fight me about it. I've never seen it. Never. That's all I have to say about round 2.
Oh, boy. What are we going to do with you, Aaron?
I just don't understand why you deny yourself such gifts. By the way, when I was in college, my girlfriend at the time begged me to go see Mean Girls. I refused for weeks.
Idiot.
She ended up getting me to go see it. I ended up laughing more than her, and she was so mad at me that I enjoyed it more than her that we broke up 2 weeks later.
I'm sure she probably told you that was the reason, but it was probably something to do with plugs. Let's go to round 3, where Scott Mantz had to make up just a little bit of ground to get back in the game. Plus 2 points, John Cusack in Better Off Dead for him. Jumps back to the Beast, who missed the 2-point question. It was Ocean's 11 was the Brad Pitt movie. It did sound an awful lot like a Fight Club tagline, but it was Ocean's 11. That one threw me for a loop.
Tricky Skaliski.
Oh, boy. I'm sure
he
he loves
that.
You owe me a Coke or however you say that crap.
No, you actually don't like Jay Washington, so I don't like you. So,
no,
all right, let's jump back to Mance here. He missed his 3-point question. Emily Watson.
Did you guys know this? Did you guys know Emily Watson, Punch Drunk Love?
I couldn't think of her name. I could think of her face, but I couldn't think of her name because she's the co-lead in Red Dragon. That's like what I know her.
Oh, anyway. Nice pull, Aaron.
Thank you. Big fan. But yeah, -3. Scott did not get the 3-pointer. It was Emily Watson in Punch Drunk Love.
This was huge for Bibbs. This was absolutely huge because Bibbs' 3-pointer, my God, can you get an easier 3-pointer?
Colonel Kurtz in Apocalypse Now. Marlon Brando groans from the crowd.
Yeah.
That was kind of a layup. I think he even said it. He even said it himself. He's like, I'm not an idiot. So Mance with a great pull here as well for his 5-pointer to get it. Ted Danson and Whoopi Goldberg. I thought that was a nice pull. Way to go there. So now it's all up to Bibbs here. Final question. If he gets the 5-pointer, he wins. If not, we've got sort of an upset here. Disney's Atlantis was the answer given. It was counted as correct. And William Bibbiani defeats Scott Mantz 22-19. We got to hang on this Atlantis question for a minute because as I was told later, that's actually not the correct answer. Frank, you've heard this as well?
Yeah, not the correct answer, and other people have pointed it out. And we've learned that if you looked at the answer key, it didn't just say Atlantis. It said the actual title. So the fact that Atlantis was accepted to begin with is pretty appalling to me.
To clarify, Beast was missing the subtitle. There are several movies that begin with Atlantis but have differing subtitles. He did not say the subtitle. I believe there's just a movie called Atlantis. So, yeah, he needed to clarify this ultimately, but the announcers did not call him on it. Scott Mantz did not challenge this. So, players, opponents, be on the lookout for in case your opponent doesn't answer a question in full because you have your challenges. Sometimes the league makes mistakes. So make sure you have your challenge button ready because you never know when something slips by Tricky Skaliski or the announcers. So learn from Scott Mantz's mistake.
Yeah, but this one is just, you shouldn't even need a challenge.
Right. I agree. The losing player should not have to fact check the league. I agree. But still, you got to always be aware of potential things that slip by. And B still deserved to win. He was going to win. I'm sure he knew the subtitle, but it's really a non-issue to me. The Beast is an elite player. He belongs in this tournament, no matter what anybody says.
And now he's in it. He is in the ultimate Schmoedown, and he does have a chance.
I have a theory. Look, Christian wanted Viviani McQueen. Didn't get it. Christian wants Bibbiani in the tournament no matter what. He doesn't want to take the chance with him going to that fatal 5-way. So if Bibbiani says Atlantis, oh, that's close enough, and I really want him in the tournament, boom, correct answer. And that's my conspiracy theory for the day.
Listen here, I'm a cynical guy. Everybody knows this, but that's something I can't even get on just because the league has proven in the last several weeks alone that there are certain answers that are written down that are incorrect. Some people won't give the full answer. They'll give partially the wrong answer. This is not a new thing where the answer that is given on both ends is wrong partially. So this is par for the course. These things happen. Again, I'm sorry, IGN. May you rest in peace.
But the thing is, I know for certain that the answer key says Atlantis, the Lost Empire, not just Atlantis. So that's very, very iffy to me.
Well, Frank
Janisch heel turn.
The league doesn't know for certain. The audience doesn't know for certain. But I mean,
know for certain.
Clearly, an elite player like William Bibbiani knew the subtitle. He wasn't asked to give the subtitle. Scott Mantz didn't challenge, even though he should have. Scott Mantz should have known that he didn't give the full answer. Scott Mantz, he is in charge of fact-checking the league. So William Bibbiani is a winner either way. And even if he had to play in that 5-way to get into the tourney, he still would have won that too.
Well, I have very little doubt that if Viviani was asked to clarify his answer, that he would come up with the subtitle. If Cushing had said, "Is that your final answer?" I have no doubt, or very little doubt, that Viviani would have said Atlantis, the Lost Empire, and then we're done with this. But that's not what happened. So here we are.
I don't know if I like this Frank Janisch. He seems a little salty this week.
I'm just saying the truth. My truth.
Frank David's this week. Let's go to the post-match interview where we'll kind of summarize this as John Rocha basically interrupted both people. He hugged Scott Mantz and they kind of put their beef aside, I guess. And he kind of got in the face of Bibbs and cut a face promo. And
let me sound off here.
Yeah, please.
Aaron, let me sound off here. Titan, can I sound off here?
Yeah.
You can't tell me who's a face and who's a heel.
Right.
You have to sell me on who's a heel and who's a face. It has to be earned on the screen. It has to be felt in our bones. When it comes to characters who have been faces or heels for a year or longer, I need a little more than a press release that says they're a face or a heel. Furthermore, you can't be a heel in one post interview and a face in another. Faces are faces. You feel it, you know it. Like Mike Kalinowski, that is a face, and you never doubt it.
After these post-match interviews, I was like, I get it. Okay, it's right. You were smacking me in the face with it. I understand. What I would have rather preferred is if this happened, kind of like Rocha ran into Bibbiani in some hallway and was like, "Oh, hey, saw your match. Nice job, blah, 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 this and that." Or he ran into Mance. Something a little more kayfabe-ish / organic, if you will. I would have preferred that instead of just coming into the interview and saying, "Well, let's put our differences aside, and that's that." And okay, I get it.
Titan, should any player have the ability to interrupt both post interviews? Is that something that we want to start a trend on, or no?
Please no. Please no. I betray you. That's all I got from this interview, because they played it in the opening promo. We didn't really talk about that, but the opening promo video, "I betray you," is still one of my favorite things that has ever been uttered in the Schmoedown. Another great quote and a great t-shirt that you can buy on TeePublic, made by our own Brian Ward.
One other thing about Rocha making this turn, I liked it when I was like, is he really going to go full face? Or, I kind of liked that lingering question. Is he really going to go, or is he going to be like halfway? But this just seemed to scream he's going all face, although it could be a ruse. He could just be doing it to psych everyone out. I don't know, although I suspect, based on things Rocha has said in the past, that this is in fact the route he's going to go. I just didn't like how it was so direct in your face, like, here it is.
The best part of it for me was that Bibbiani doesn't want to play Rocha for pride. He doesn't want to play him for revenge. He just wants to wear his hat. And I find that to be hilarious.
Yeah, and that sounds like something a face would say. A heel would say something like, "I want you to kiss my boots." That is a heel type reward for losing. So
and it's weird.
And it's weird. It's very strange. It's very demeaning and very inappropriate.
It's very Fast and the Furious.
But Frank, you are a big fan of top, bottom 10. Now, do you feel in your bones, does it feel like Josh Mocha has earned the label of face? Do you feel it is earned, or does he still have some work to do to earn that distinction of face?
Hold on, before you answer, top 10, John Rocha. Okay, go.
Okay, see, that's what I was like, I feel like I know what you're talking about, but okay. First of all, I don't mind John making this transition. I just don't really care for the way they're going about it, with it being so direct, and then now all of a sudden it's done in one match. Is that how this works now? Is that how they're playing this? So
you've answered already. You do not feel that he has earned the right to say he's a face at this point. So I appreciate your honesty, Frank. Thank you.
I mean, I like him going there, but I just don't like the way they did it.
You don't think it's earned yet? He still has some steps to take to earn that distinction. Aaron, you agree?
Absolutely, 100%. I just think that you have one special where, like, we're supposed to feel bad for Rocha and Nose, who have been just talking crap to everybody. Now I'm supposed to feel bad for them because the people that didn't want to be on their team don't want to be on their team anymore? I'm going to go a step further here. And top 10 fans, you can come at me all you want. Fight me. Second reference to that. But I'm so bored to death with Rocha and Nost right now. Like, I just want them to go away. I feel like they are, and I don't mean that in a mean way. I just feel like they're overexposed. Like, Rocha for the longest time was in like every single storyline. Like, he interrupted every single interview. And it was kind of nice for a while to not have him in every single thing. Like, we got new stars. We got Kalinowski. We got Brienne. We got Viviani. We got Whitney. We got all these other people, like a new guard. I feel like so many new stars.
You know, you mentioned how Rocha would, as a heel, would interrupt these post-match interviews, and like that's a very heel thing to do. I don't know if that's a face thing to do. I would rather see it as a cutscene, like something happened, in a hallway or however you want to do it. But yeah, I don't think you can use the same trope you used as a heel and then transfer that over to face.
I think you're making good points here,
Frank. That is one of the most logical things you've ever said on this show, and you said a lot of logical and reasonable things on this show. But ultimately, I was intrigued by the idea of him making a transition, but I thought that would mean he would go off the radar for a little bit and come back with a different attire, different apparel, different costume, different attitude, maybe a slightly different voice, just a different approach, much like The Undertaker or plenty of other great wrestlers have come back after some time away with a whole new outlook and persona, basically. So that didn't really happen. And it's just, we're being told, you can't tell me these things. We need to be sold on them. We need to be convinced, and it just doesn't happen by telling us. So guys, let's get a little more convincing steps before we say this person's a face, this person's a heel. Because I still have 4th of July, the 4th of July team title match, top 10.
Thank you.
I'm going to say it in this case. The way they performed, the way they acted in that team title match on 4th of July still sits with me because it was so troubling and bothersome and just unprofessional. That's not the right word. It just looked like bad, poor sportsmanship. And I said it a million times then in a far more eloquent manner when we recapped that match. But what they did in that match, when they showed that they were defeated, when they showed fear by talking as the Patriots were trying to answer their questions, that is still stuck with me. And I'm not going to forget about it just because we're being told that this person is now a face when they're still acting just like they did as a heel.
That's why a lot of allegiances on this show lean towards somebody who talks about real news and not fake news. Just want to throw that out there. I believe in Dagnino. But that's going to do it for our recaps of these matches. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with our previews for next week. We interrupt this amazing episode of the Schmoedown Rundown to bring you this news. Do you like what you've heard so far? Do you like the Schmoedown Rundown? And of course, why wouldn't you? Do us a favor. If you are listening on iTunes, please rate and review the show along with all the other shows on the Schmoes Know feed. If you are watching via YouTube on the SK Plus channel, be sure to like and leave a comment. We would really appreciate that, and it will help out all the other shows on the channel, such as Outlaw Nation with John Roca, the Harloff Podcast with Christian Harloff, The Wenger Show, among the rest of the shows on the channel. Something new for everybody every single day, so definitely check out the SK Plus feed and the Schmoes Know iTunes feed. And now back to the best looking host on the channel, Aaron Turner. Alright guys, we're back and we have an InnerGeekDom preview for next week. It is Robert Meyer Burnett, who we talked about a lot earlier, versus Jay the Urban Gladiator Washington, a grudge match. All signs to me are pointing that this is going to be a Burnett victory. Frank, do you have any stats on these guys? Probably more so for Burnett, and then tell me who you got.
Yeah, I really only have anything for Burnett. He's averaging 66% through his InnerGeekDom matches. He's been in 3 types of matches, and we have yet to see a TKO in the InnerGeekDom. And I think it's going to happen this match. Robert Meyer Burnett over Jay Washington in a TKO.
Your betrayal of Chicago is unbelievable. Brian Davis, who you got in this one?
Strap in, guys. Strap in. Jay Washington.
Come on.
Made it no secret that he wanted a shot at InnerGeekDom after a poor singles debut against the Android a million years ago. However, he was passed over for the InnerGeekDom Fatal 5-Way that Koi Jean-Dro eventually won. Thus, Jay blasted the commish via social media, given his previous request to play in the next InnerGeekDom Fatal 5-Way. As a result, Harloff promised him he'd get a shot soon enough. And since then, Jay's been paying his dues as Miss Mouthpiece for 6 Degrees, and he's managed to build himself a role in this league while waiting for his shot at InnerGeekDom. I've also heard that he's been working on his game and sharpening his skills for whenever his number was called. Now, prior to JTE and Knapsack, I doubted the league's greatest stable, Top Den, as I expected JTE's karma to go against him, leading to one of my first missed predictions in years. But despite making a case for the league's greatest heel performance in and of itself, while also being a member of Top Den, I think it'll be Burnett's karma that delays the long-term dividends that many expect him to provide Top Den. Therefore, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Jay Washington is gonna shock the Schmoedown, proving he's more than Miss Mouthpiece.
I got something to say real quick, because I had to go back and look at this Andreko Washington scorecard. Andreko missed all 4 of his questions in the second round, and it was a Star Wars category. Jay Washington could not capitalize on one of those questions. He also got comic book category in the second round and was only able to get 6 points. He had to go to multiple choice twice. He missed it 1 time. I just don't see it. I just don't.
I gotta go against what I did for Knapsack and JTE. I gotta go with the underdog, which I rarely do. I mean, I go with underdogs, but in this case, I got a feeling.
Well, that was so elegant. I'll just stick with my prediction. I'll just take Robert Meyer Burnett. I don't really have a big soliloquy to go with it. I just think he'll win the match. That's all. But that's going to do it. That's going to do it for this episode. Or wait, maybe not. We're going to go ahead and sign off here. But the second half, or second quarter of the show, if you will be our interview with Jenn Sterger. So do not go away. You do not want to miss that. It's pretty fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off. My name's Aaron. You can find me on Twitter at ATTitanium if you wish. Frank Janisch, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at FrankieJ29.
Brian Davids, where can you be found?
You guys can follow me, Brian Davids, on Twitter at BDF331. Check out my TV film podcast at filmschlubspodcast.com. As always, special thanks to Brian Ward for his artwork contributions. Follow him at Brian E. Ward. Lastly, I know it was you, Knapsack. You broke my heart. You broke my heart.
And guys, I appreciate everybody that really enjoyed the post-credits scenes that we did for the past 2 weeks. So consider this interview an elongated post-credits scene. So technically they are continuing. So enjoy it, and we will catch you guys next week. It's a special edition. We have a special guest joining us. She is a stand-up comedian, sports enthusiast, animal advocate, makeup and hair artist extraordinaire, and most importantly to some, she's a Seminole. Welcome, Jenn Sterger, to the Rundown. Welcome to the show.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me, guys.
Well, we're happy to have you, believe us.
That was such a great hype man, too. Like, honestly, you want to be my advocate?
I can. I mean, I can be your Paul Heyman if I have to.
I need a Paul Heyman, right?
There you go.
I'll fold some towels.
There it is. Well, let's kick off with the question I think most people want to know. How did you get started in the Schmoedown? Like, how did you get this gig? Did Christian call you? Was it an email kind of thing? Is it like, how did that all kick off?
So we were introduced by a mutual friend, and it was because of our love for wrestling, and we both have worked for the company being, WWE. We both worked for the company, and we happened to be Seminole. We just really kicked it off in a meeting, and they were working on this completely separate project. And then when I started talking about, my time at WWE and all the things that I learned and just how passionate I was about the product, he's like, well, how do you feel about movie trivia? And I was like, I love it. It's fun. I don't know how good I am at competing at it, but I definitely am interested in the concept of, what they were doing over at Schmoedown, especially given the wrestling background side that they do, which is completely unique, I think. It's a unique format that's out there that you don't see on other game shows. So, I mean, I was just drawn to it right away because they were combining my two favorite things.
Well, that's the first thing I actually noticed when I was doing my research when you first got brought on. Sorry, that sounded really creepy. But when I do my research here, I saw a tweet that you had put up about wrestling. I was like, she might be a wrestling fan. And then I took a deeper dive, and I was like, holy crap, she's a huge wrestling fan.
Was that when my pinned tweet was when you're over 40 and seeking your dad's approval, and it was Shane McMahon diving off of a cage?
Yes, it was. And then
that's like a really proud moment of mine. I was like, oh my God.
And then months later, because I went to WrestleMania, and then months later I saw your tweet that was about WrestleMania, and it had about Stephanie McMahon on a motorcycle falling off in Daytona Beach or something like that.
Oh yeah,
I was rolling. It was pretty good. But that's what I want to talk about real quick. I want to branch off of that because you worked for the WWE. You were in the secret Diva search that they had in 2013.
I was in the secret Divas search. It's pretty crazy. So they sent out, it's a really crazy process that you go through. It's months long. I mean, I think I applied for it in December of 12 and they didn't get back to us. Like, I had forgotten about it. And then I got emailed, I guess, sometime in like mid-January. And they're like, hey, we're bringing you into our office. You're going to meet with Paul. You're going to meet with this person. And of course, I knew Paul was Triple H. And so I was like, my 13-year-old inner self was automatically geeked at that moment. And so they bring you in, they kind of interview you for a little bit, then they make you go change into like a swimsuit just to make sure you're not like a total hot mess. And I was like, thank God I shaved. But I mean, it was just such a cool experience. I made it through that, shockingly, because I really wasn't working out at the time. And they really were interested in bringing me on as a commentator, like almost as like a, like in the booth as like a Michael Cole type or something like that. Sure. But not for play-by-play, mostly for color commentary and storytelling. And so, I mean, I was definitely intrigued. But the whole catch was I still had to go through Diva Camp. And I think like any other kid that's ever watched professional wrestling, I looked at that and I was like, oh, hell yeah, I can be the next Trish Stratus. Like, watch, they're going to bring me in for commentating, but I'm actually going to be an amazing diva. And like 3 days into camp, my neck was made out of tissue paper. And I think I was Ava Marie's first victim.
Oh.
No.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So that's the crew that like if you're looking for a timeline, that's the crew that I came up with in the wrestling circuit. Third or fourth day, I was already hurting. They took me to the emergency room because they thought my neck might have been rebroken from a previous incident. And I just remember laying there and they were giving me a steroid shot in the butt. And I was just like, oh my God, my professional baseball career is over. And I was like, this is the beginning of the end. And from then on out, I think I was excused from Divas camp. I got to hang out and watch and see how everything was done. But the most of my training took place at NXT, and it was just basically behind the mic with Michael Cole and all them.
Does it help with that background and your fandom to help with the kayfabe that's presented in this league? I mean, it has to a little bit, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because, there's so many competitors that get the competition side of it, and they're amazing at movie trivia, but they did not grasp the concepts of professional wrestling. They didn't get that. And I think that there's still a lot of gray area there as far as how that goes. One thing I think we messed up on is some of us use our real names. And so whenever we see criticisms of ourselves online, like it's like, well, Jen did this and Jen did that. And they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like we're still playing characters on top of ourselves, So that whole kayfabe part's still a little tricky in explaining to competitors, but I definitely think my background gives me, I don't know, kind of an insight on how to help them, like guide them into like building characters and definitely cutting promos. I'll tell you, another person who's really great at that besides Christian and myself is Jay Washington. He is phenomenal because of his wrestling background. And I mean, not only is he a tough guy and he looks the part, I mean, the man can take a bump. He's just so good on the mic and so entertaining. And he's one of the few people there that can get me to break character and like get me to laugh. I feel like when I step on stage with him, I'm like Jimmy Fallon on SNL. Like it's just such a shit show.
Jen, I know less than nothing about hosting, but one thing I noticed is that you always seem to know when to look at the subject you're interviewing and when to look back at the camera in order to engage with the audience. Is this instinctual or was this something you were taught?
Oh, no. I mean, that's just something I'm making up as I'm going along. Look, I just view interviewing as like a three-way conversation between the person I'm interviewing, myself, and the people at home. And I almost look to them like I would to get a reaction from them. Does that make sense? Right. Where I'm like, are you guys hearing this? And especially with the characters that we're, involved with in Schmoedown, it's just totally appropriate, I think, because the audience is such a huge part of the Schmoedown and the fans are such a big part of it. And I think that they are in on the conversations when we're doing the interviews. That's why a lot of times I'll go to the message boards and say, hey, is there anything here that you guys want to ask, this competitor, because it is an interactive show. And I think that that's what makes it so cool.
Yes, some hosts forget that we're watching, and so you have this great way of making us feel a part of the conversation. So
thank you.
I was just curious, and we've heard about your famous makeup chops for a while now. Correction,
oh, Jesus.
Correction, we've seen the byproduct of them within the Schmoedown. So as the league continues to grow, would you ever be interested in being the head of the hair and makeup department for the Schmoedown if it came to that one day?
I love doing it, but as much as I love being in front of the camera, I also love helping build the characters. And I think that all comes back with the kayfabe stuff. I like having input in like the creative process that's going on behind it. And so like the other day I had an idea for a character that I took to Christian and I was like, wouldn't this be great? And we kind of like tossed the idea back and forth. And then he was like, I really want to do this. Let's build this for a little bit, And it's so funny because I've seen comments sometimes on how this might be fixed or this might be fixed. And unlike in professional wrestling, like we may be working a story angle that we are really, really invested in and then have it get completely uprooted because someone else won that we weren't expecting to win. Do we think that there might be a favorite sometimes? Yeah, but then when that goes completely out the window, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a real competition. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, I love helping Brienne, Miss Movies, with her makeup, and Stacy with her ideas, and sometimes they'll run different ideas for promos. I love when people take like the extra step to be creative and to come in with something fresh because I feel like it just adds such an interesting layer to the show that I just don't think you see anywhere else.
Has anyone recruited you or tried to recruit you for hair and makeup, and maybe outside of Brian and Stacy? Like, hey, I see what you've done there. Maybe you can give me some tips. Anything like that?
Oh yeah, all the time. Even if it's just like little stuff like here or there. Sometimes the guys just come to me and they're like, "Hey, Jen, I know you've got some of that powder that takes away the shine. Can I get some of that?"
take my shine away. I like it.
Exactly. I was like, Jay, I'm like, there's only so much I can do, man.
Jumping around a bit, forgive us. How did the stand-up bug hit you? When did that happen?
So I've always wanted to do stand-up. I really started getting into the comedy stuff in New York, but I was kind of scared to take the plunge and actually start doing it full time. Plus, I had my own TV show at the time on now it was Versus, it's defunct Versus, now NBC Sports. I had my own show on that, and I just didn't have the time because we were on the air until midnight. So after I got back out to LA and I stayed in LA full time, after about a year or two here, I told myself, like, if I didn't end up going and working with the WWE, like, that I was going to finally conquer that world, that I was going to start really delving into, like, doing comedy and doing comedy writing, because it's something that I've enjoyed doing and I'd written for other people. So it just made sense. That's just kind of how I started snowballing into there. I picked up steam really fast because, girls that are confident in stand-up are, especially early on, are hard to come by. But I already had a stage presence and just a really good crowd work and, routine and everything going. So it just felt like a natural fit from day one.
You seem to be a Renaissance woman. Was this something that was common with you as a teenager? Were you interested in so many different things as a child? Is this something that has been with you your whole life?
I mean, yeah, it always came down to the performing arts, or even just regular art. I love being creative, and it definitely evolved more and it changed as I went through high school. I did Glee before Glee was actually a cool thing, and I got pushed into lockers for doing it. And I was the drum major of the band, and I was involved in any kind of creative activity humanly possible. Like when it came to homecoming floats, the float was always parked in my parents' driveway because I was so artistic, and I was like, no, let's do it this way. And it was always like above and beyond every single time. And it always looked like we were working with a completely different budget than everyone else that was making floats, because they were just so creative and unique and had themes. And I don't know, I've just always taken art and everything about being creative super seriously. Right now I'm in the middle of planning a wedding, so you can imagine what that is. Our wedding will be themed. My parents think it's the dumbest thing in the world, and all my friends are like, that's amazing. So, it's right in line with who, me and my fiance are as a couple. We're fun, and everything we do is like full out. It's funny because they call him a Renaissance man in baseball because he's also an actor. He books more commercials than I do in the off season. It's insane. And so it's just, it's a good match.
Watching an episode that you were on of the Josh Bakuga show, and you had talked, shout out to Josh Bakuga, and you were talking about how when you first got started that you, someone that helped you out along the way a lot was Johnny LaQuasto. And
oh, yeah.
Johnny is a guy that we now see in the Schmoedown as a mouthpiece, as part of the league. Are you happy to see Johnny in there? Like, what's your guys' relationship like?
Oh, I love Johnny. So Johnny is kind of like the big brother that I've always needed to keep me out of trouble. And I wish he would have found me in like my teenage years instead of my late 30s, because I probably would have made better decisions in my life. But Johnny's just a great energy to have around, and he's amazing on Schmoedown. And I hope that he gets to, get more and more involved, as we progress and as DC Movie News comes in and makes their presence known even more. But he's a wonderful mouthpiece. The guy just has, I don't know, he's just got this sense of humor about him that's just something straight out of an 80s sitcom or like a Naked Gun movie. He's just a little bit absurd, but like something so adorable and lovable about him that you just, he's just such a great energy. I can't express that enough.
He's another person that bleeds the business. I mean, he's a huge wrestling fan.
Huge wrestling fan. I mean, the guy marks out even when he's a smark. You know what I mean?
Oh, now you're getting into the inside baseball terms for our listeners. They're gonna be like, "What is a smark?" I have no idea what that is, but we'll educate you later, folks. It's fine. As far as characters in the Schmoedown outside of Johnny, is there like who entertains you? Like when you watch a match, Who were you like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm here on the day that this person's being on?
God, there's just so many of them, though. You know, besides Miss Movies, I mean, her entrances are epic. She's queen of entrances. I really enjoy watching Team Action. Team Action is just so committed to being heels and the best heels that they can possibly be. And they do it with such class in their tuxedos. They're always overdressed. I was very disappointed, though. One of them took off their tie the other day, and I found out it was a clip. And, like, it was like watching Mouse take his head off at Disney World, like, out in front of the children. Like, that's what it felt like to me. I was like, that's not real.
The magic was gone.
It was gone. Absolutely. I was crushed. But Team Action, you know, I really enjoy watching them. I got to finally meet Mance. You know, he's very elusive with his schedule and whatnot. And I finally got to meet him. And I understand what all the hype is about. He is just a delight and a tad insane and just so full of energy. It's the way I equated it to was the dog from Up. Like, everything's going fine and then squirrel, you know?
Jen, I've said this before, so it's not just a case of flattery, but I loved your Collision pre-show.
Oh, thank you.
And I think you'd be a great announcer alongside Christian or Ken right now. So are you also interested in potentially calling matches?
Oh my God, I'd love to call matches with them. I mean, I think it's hard to top the kind of chemistry that Ken and Christian and Ellis have, but I would definitely be willing to step in and call a match alongside them. And just, I don't know that I'd be a heel commentator, but I definitely feel like I bring a certain roast element to the announcing that I don't think I've really gotten to show as of now on the Schmoedown, just because that is my comedy background. You know, I've written for Jeff Ross and for numerous other roasts, and it's definitely in my wheelhouse. I hope one day I get to show that to everyone.
Hashtag Christian, folks. Let's get it started.
Now, when you are doing your backstage interviews, I notice that you tend to stay a little neutral as opposed to like maybe playing a side, heel, or face. Is that something you kind of alluded to just a minute ago? But is that something you kind of want to lean into? Do you want to kind of pick a side more or less, or are you fine just kind of playing both sides?
You know, I've talked to Christian about it, and I think that when the right opportunity comes along, the character will just make sense. And I think I'm still figuring out what side that I belong on, you know. But with Grace, with the Lion's Den and whatnot, and, you know, Emma doing her thing, I feel like the best way for me to stay right now is neutral and as true of a storyteller as possible, you know, because there's got to be the straight man in all of the comedy and the zaniness that's going on around Schmoedown. And I feel like right now, you know, Christian and I are really pulling those pieces together because Ellis certainly isn't doing it in his bright orange jacket that he wears on occasion. So
whether it's hosting or reporting, and this goes for the Schmoedown too, but what is the most practical advice you would offer aspiring hosts, aspiring reporters that you did not have growing up?
I think that the best advice I can offer to anyone that's looking to get into hosting or reporting is, for as good as you need to be in being confident on the mic and having a presence about you, the most important thing that people forget when they're interviewing people is to listen. If you're not listening and you're constantly thinking about what your next question is going to be, or what are they thinking of me while I'm doing this, and being very self-conscious, you're not doing the listeners a favor. And so sometimes people may get a little aggravated with me with like my back and forth, but when I'm interviewing people, I'm legitimately having a conversation as if the audience is there. So there is back and forth, there is banter. And, you know, I think that that's a really important aspect of interviewing, is just making sure you listen to the person so that you can have an actual conversation and not just ask a lineup of questions.
Is there like some kind of alumni book for Florida State that people get into? It's like, we got yourself, we have Roca, Christian, Mike Kalinowski, Dan Merle. You're all Seminoles. What happened here? Like, is there a Rolodex where people are just like, hey, she went to Florida State, he went to Florida State, let's get him for the Schmoedown? Like, or is that just a happy accident?
We all meet at Big Wang's during football season. I definitely think that we're just all awesome is what it comes down to. You know, and like, it's really cool. Like, I wasn't part of a sorority when I was going through college. I tell everyone I was a GDI, a goddamn independent, and I really embraced that. I didn't really belong to a clique. clique I belonged to was one that I kind of created myself with, the whole Cowgirls thing at Florida State. So I just was kind of bouncing around through all the different cliques. And I feel like that's kind of how Schmoedown is too. We all are coming from different parts of Hollywood. We're all doing our own thing. And we just all happen to have this passion for the Schmoedown and for movie trivia in common.
Remember, folks, the hashtag Jen at the table. Start tweeting Christian now. Jen, because you're busy being a Renaissance woman while also sharing Schmoedown interview responsibilities with 2 others, is it difficult to keep up with all of the matches, news, and kayfabe? As Schmoedown podcasters who consume and create, it can be challenging for us to keep up with everything. So, given the crazy Schmoedown schedule, do you have to binge watch matches on occasion or get a storyline download from Christian here and there?
It goes both ways, if as long as I haven't had, if I've been on set all week long, or if I've had a writing gig, because I was writing for Comedy Central for a while, and then I got picked up by a game show for another thing. So if I'm on set all week long, I don't get as caught up then, but otherwise I try to handle my business before I get in there. But sometimes you do need a Cliff's Notes version, I'm not going to lie, just because there is so much going on at Collider and at Schmoedown that it's impossible to keep up sometimes. There's always background that's done, and I've always been caught up on the matches that are going on in progress, the ones leading up to it, so that I have information, like if they're competing in singles as well, like what's that do to that? And, just there's so many functioning pieces, especially when you consider that it's not like the WWE in that aspect where there's, if you're in a tag team, you're in a tag team and you're not having singles matches. No, you can be in singles matches and in team matches, and it's it's all fluid from there. People break up. You have to keep a track of, who's breaking up, who's getting back together, who's forming new factions, potential factions that can be formed down the line if this happens and this happens and this. It's always an evolving table of competitors. And sometimes, they'll bring in new competitors, like when we brought in Late to the Party, things like that. That was really cool, just because it was, for me, that was a great match because I was so shocked how well they hung in there, and I think that that's a really interesting angle to consider, is that, we say all the time, like it comes down to sitting down underneath the lights and can you handle the pressure of answering stuff in the moment that you can answer anytime you want on your couch, but when the lights are on, it's a whole different story.
Jen, favorite wrestler, favorite Schmoedowner?
My favorite wrestler, are we talking like all time? Are we talking like currently on the roster?
All time.
That's really hard. I think I'm going to go with Mankind.
Wow.
I think I'm going to have to go with Mick Foley. I love him. He's just such a hot mess, and reminds me if my dad decided to pick up a barbed wire bat and go try wrestling one day in a Hawaiian shirt. Well, not my dad, more like my father-in-law. He just got off the couch and then was like, I think I'm gonna try wrestling today. That's what I feel like Mick Foley is. Schmoedown, I really am a huge fan of Makuga, not only as a person but as a competitor. I think that I'm also, as much as people hate him, you hate him or you love him, Tom Dagnino really brings a certain element. He is the quintessential heel, and he has perfected his weirdo, I probably should be in jail, motif he's got working on, his gimmick. He's perfected it so much, and he's living that heel life that you can't hate him. Do you know what I'm saying?
Big friend of the show.
Big friend of the show.
Yeah, we're big fans, and he's big fans of ours.
Perhaps the biggest friend of the show.
Oh, he's great. He's great. If you don't get what he's doing, please get a sense of humor. He's such an idiot, but in a great way. Same with JTE. They're just so good at being bad, you have to love them, And I'm one of those people that when I see people that are just so good at being heels, I'm the idiot that's going to root for the heel. That's what's called a smart. It's a smart mark. Mark in wrestling is like a fan that believes all the kayfabe and the gimmicks, and they don't see past it, and they're the guy that boos the bad guy. Smarks are the people that are like, God, I love this asshole. They're amazing. That's a smark. I want this person to be as bad as possible, and I'm going to cheer for them just out of being contrary and being an anti-hero, That's a smark. And that's your wrestling education for the day, ladies and gentlemen.
Boom.
I now know what to call my fans, because I'm the heel of this show, so to speak. So I know how to address the 5 people who appreciate me. Thank you. I learned something from this podcast. This is amazing.
Oh, thanks,
The
Brian.
more you know.
I want to know a little bit about like what you got going on now. Like I know you're an animal advocate, so do you have something going on there, or anything you want to tell us about or tell the people about?
Yeah, in case you haven't heard, I'm kind of like the Snow White of the Schmoedown. I constantly have random animals that I'm bringing to work with me. Usually they're in, little carry bags that like people can't even tell. Like they wouldn't know that I had baby kittens with me on set, but they're there. But I do a lot of animal advocate work, and I do a lot of animal rescue work with this rescue called Care Rescue LA. It started out with me just being friends with a girl that I met on set that was my makeup artist. And then one day she called me in a panic because she remembered that I said I knew how to do bottle feeding for like little baby kittens. And she was like, "Can I bring these kittens over?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And then when she brought them to my house, I was like, "That sounds like a lot of kittens in that box. How many are there?" And she's like, 10. So I proceeded to raise 10 bottle baby kittens from about 2 weeks old till they were like 12 weeks old. And it was absolute chaos. I loved every minute of it. And it just kind of got me into the animal. Until then, I was doing like all independent rescue work and just spending my own money. And so it was so nice to find a rescue group that like had some private funding and, was getting a lot of donations, and they could provide all the medical stuff, and I could just focus on loving the animals and helping them get to their forever homes, So if anybody wants to donate to Care Rescue LA, I love working with them. I love being a part of the board. I constantly am helping them put on fundraisers. But you can always go to our website. It's carerescuela.org. Or you can Venmo us, PayPal us. I mean, we'll take any kind of currency. One of my rescues that was from last year that got hit by a car, I had to nurse her. She was like on death's door, and so they put a feeding tube in her throat, and I had to like do all kinds of like medical feedings and stuff like that for her and medicate her till she was like strong enough to withstand surgery. I thought I was going to be able to like get her adopted. But then my cat fell in love with her. So now I'm stuck with her. So, but I mean, I don't think she'd be happier anywhere else. The two of them are best friends now. So they're like running around in the background right now playing. So it's pretty cute. Just in case you needed some adorable visual to close this podcast out with.
Yes. That's what we always need. We need to end on a positive note. No downers about the game being rigged or anything like that. None of that.
No, because it's not.
Exactly.
It's so not rigged. At any given day, any amount of chaos can happen at any time. I mean, the tournament is just now getting ready to start. It's just starting, and already there have been some matches that are just absolute nail biters, and stuff we didn't see coming. So stay tuned, guys. This tournament's going to get real interesting. I do a lot of my stuff at home or with writers groups. And so right now I'm working on a couple different concepts that if you're big fans of like 80s nostalgia or, superheroes, like that type stuff, which I'm sure fans of the Schmoedown are, the stuff I'm working on right now is super fun. It's funny. And I'm working on selling those concepts. So they're right at the end stages of being approved and for me getting a fat check. So if anyone can say their prayers for that, I'd really appreciate it.
And you're at Jennifer Sterger on Twitter. Same with Instagram.
Absolutely. I will not be posting pictures of myself in a bikini unless they are throwback pictures because I just don't have that kind of confidence. Yeah, at Jennifer Sterger on Twitter and at Jennifer Sterger on Instagram. You can find all my pictures of all my cats, my Schmoedown adventures, my stand-up shows. Everything you need to know is there, and the occasional roast joke during sports season or WWE pay-per-views.
Well, give her a look, give her a follow, donate if you can, but definitely check out what she's doing. She spent a lot of time with us. We really appreciate your time. Hopefully, we've made a friend and we can do it sometime down the road again. I hope so. I'll keep my fingers crossed on that one.
Absolutely, guys. This was fun. Thank you so much for making it so painless and fun to hang out. We can talk wrestling any day, man.
Oh, this is what I like to hear.
Remember, folks, hashtag Jen at the table.
I think this is the start of a beautiful friendship, guys.